Last week, I heard someone say that Hojicha powder is roasted matcha. I know it's not a big deal, but it's so inaccurate that I had to do a video. Hojicha powder is never roasted matcha. They're two completely different things. It's like saying ice hockey is like figure skating with sticks. It's completely different. Yes, Hojicha powder and matcha powder, they're both types of Japanese green tea. However, they branch out in such early phases. Today, I'm going to clarify everything. Hi, I'm Yuki, I'm the founder of Tea Life, and here we break down Japanese tea so you can become a Japanese tea expert. Now, first of all, the size of a matcha powder is about 10 microns, or micrometers. A micrometer is a millionth of a meter. That's how small a particle of matcha is. So put it into perspective, a grain of table salt, this is about 300 to 500 micrometers. So a speck of matcha is about 30 to 50 times smaller than a table salt. So imagine you're trying to roast these very fine particles of matcha. They will burn instantly. You'll just get black powder. So Hojicha powder, again, is never roasted matcha. So what is Hojicha powder? Hojicha powder is powdered Hojicha. And in that case, what's Hojicha? Hojicha is roasted Japanese green tea. As you may know, Japanese green tea it's steamed to fix the oxidation and also to preserve the greenness within the tea. And you take that and roast it to make it brown color to become Hojicha. So that's what Hojicha is. Now, you usually wouldn't use a high quality tea to create Hojicha. You would usually use Matcha or Kukicha. Now, Matcha is a relatively inexpensive type of Japanese green tea. They usually use a third flush or fourth flush tea leaf to create, in a very similar way to what you would create sencha. For a Kukicha, it's more like a byproduct of the manufacturing process of sencha or gyokuro or something like that, where it's the stem parts of the tea leaves that are the remnants of the process. So you would use these relatively inexpensive components of the tea to roast, and then it would become a Hojicha. What the roasting does is it completely transforms the composition of the tea. So it reduces the astringency, it reduces the bitterness. It also reduces the sweetness and umami as well. But while doing so, it really enhances the aroma you find in the Hojicha. So actually, it's really suitable for a lower quality tea leaf because it reduces the high amounts of astringency and bitterness that a low quality tea leaf may have. At the same time, it won't reduce as much umami because it doesn't have too much in the first place, while really enhancing the aroma. And that's why you would use teas such as Kukicha and Matcha more for creating Hojicha. Now, traditionally, Hojicha tea leaves are infused. So you take the tea leaves and then you infuse it or steep it in hot water and you brew it and you make Hojicha tea. Now, for Hojicha powder, what you do is you take these Hojicha tea and you ground them into powdered form, kind of like matcha. So that's what Hojicha powder is. Now let's talk about matcha because matcha follows a completely different path. For matcha, it first starts with this special tea called tencha. Tencha is basically a tea that's shaded before harvesting to really increase the amount of umami and sweetness built up in the tea leaves. So it's very precious already. Then it's carefully processed by deveining the tea leaves. And then after that, they're ground into matcha form very slowly using a stone mill. So every step of the way, there's a considerable amount of care and money spent into creating this very high umami content matcha powder. Now imagine taking that very precious, very expensive matcha powder and roasting it to remove the umami and sweetness. It's just insane. It's just doesn't make sense at all. And then you'll get burnt powder. Why? So to summarize, Hojicha powder is not matcha powder that's roasted. It's usually Kukicha or Matcha that's roasted and then ground into powdered form. Now to wrap up, let's quickly talk about what the differences are between Hojicha powder and then normal Hojicha. So there's a few things that happen. First of all, by grounding, you completely consume the entire tea leaf. When you brew Hojicha, when you infuse Hojicha, you can only extract part of the leaf. But obviously if you ground it and if you mix it with water, then you suspend the whole entire leaf in the water. So basically you're consuming the entire leaf as opposed to just, a part of the leaf. This texture is the second point. If you infuse a Hojicha, it becomes a very light drink. It's very, very light. And compared to that, if you mix a powdered Hojicha, it's kind of like matcha. So you get a very strong texture. And that's why it works really well with things like lattes or even cooking. Third, the aroma becomes much stronger because it's ground into a powdered form. Hojicha itself is a very light tea, so unless you really use the powdered form, if you use it in lattes or if you use it in cooking, you really won't be able to taste or smell the aroma anymore. And that leads to the fourth point, which is the Hojicha powder becomes much more versatile because of all of what I mentioned just now. It's very suitable for mixing with lattes, for cooking, and whatnot. One thing I will say is that if you want to drink pure Hojicha with just water or hot water, then I would actually recommend, instead of going for powdered Hojicha, you should go for infused Hojicha. So the loose leaf form of the Hojicha might be better. And the reason is because it gives you a more pure form of Hojicha. If you take the powdered Hojicha and mix it with water, it becomes a very strong drink. And unlike matcha, it doesn't have the umami and sweetness to compensate either. So it's a little bit harder to drink compared to the infused Hojicha. So that's the reason I would recommend going for the loose leaf tea if you want to drink pure Hojicha. So that's the end of the video. I hope it clarifies what Hojicha powder is and the fact that it's not roasted matcha. I hope you liked it. Thank you for watching. If you want to learn more about Japanese green tea, then please do subscribe to the channel and also make sure you register to the free newsletter that we have from the link below.